when you look at the substance of what we've done with Brexit, and that's extraordinarily disappointing. And 7 years now since the referendum, what have we got to show for it? What differences have been made by this government in the last 3 years, let alone in the last 7? And the answer is a fat zero. You know, we haven't controlled our borders. We haven't diverged from the EU in terms of rules and regulations, hardly at all. And we've not used the independence which we fought so hard to achieve through the referendum. So, I mean, this government spent half its time since 2016 trying to sabotage Brexit when Theresa May was trying to keep us in the customs union, the single market. And then after Boris achieved Brexit in name, he then did absolutely nothing with it. And Rishi Sunak, although he voted for Brexit, is the very epitome of a kind of globalist international banker, conformist, who doesn't want to make waves, doesn't want to upset the international elites and so on. We need a freebooting Prime Minister who's going to take this by the scruff of the neck and take advantage of the opportunities which we've got in innovation. You know, Europe is a declining part of the world economy. You know, 40 years ago, it was 30% of world GDP. Now it's lower than 15% and declining rapidly, relatively, because other parts of the world, China, India, and so on, are growing so fast, and Europe isn't growing at all. You know, Britain needs to look out into the wider world, not inwardly, to a continent which, in historical terms, is in decline. You know, and all those Conservative politicians who are in 55 Tufton Street with Liam Halligan, why aren't they in the government? They're the real Brexiteers. They're the ones who should be driving this campaign, and yet they've been excluded. And I think that says it all, actually. The government is being run by people who don't really believe in Brexit, like Jeremy Hunt, for instance, who was a massive Remainiac. And he is probably the most important member of the government, maybe even more important than Rishi Sunak in practical terms. So,
although he
haven't got very high hopes, yeah. I'm afraid.
No, Neil, Jeremy Hunt does seem to have changed his tune on Brexit, but do those words ring hollow is the question. I'll be asking whether Labour can be trusted with Brexit later in the hour. But Neil, notwithstanding your misgivings about the current situation, do we, as it stands, have a that'll do Brexit? Have we got a good enough Brexit? Is what we have now better than Remain?
Oh, well, that's certainly true. And we're outside the EU institutions. You know, we haven't had to make contributions to the EU budget of 20 billion a year. As Jacob Rees-Mogg has been pointing out, we haven't had to contribute nearly 200 billion to the EU bailout fund for the costs of the pandemic and so on. So, yes, of course, there are massive benefits, even though we've not used many of the powers that we've reacquired since we officially left the EU. Nevertheless, we have the freedom to use them, which we didn't have before. So in many respects, we're better off, even though the government has not made the sort of use of the opportunities that I would like them to.